Hey guys, and welcome back to Bookum Dano's channel. This is another episode of Peanuts Picks, and I am so excited to talk about the first one, A Letter to Joe. It's a graphic novel memoir, and it is so beautifully done. Dan ordered this in a trade, and I read it first, and I'm so excited for Dan to pick it up because he's really gonna love it. It's so beautiful. Okay. So let's dive into it. What is it about? As Leonard Siraki fights on the front lines of World War II, memories of Josephine and home help keep him alive. As Josephine, also known as Joe, contends with life, family, and work in Cleveland, letters from Leonard sustain her. But official censorship forces him to leave out much of the most significant action he sees. Finally, with the war coming to an end, Leonard is able to tell his full story to Joe. In a quietly beautiful letter to Josephine, Leonard writes of the loneliness he felt, the brotherhood he experienced, and the terrible violence he witnessed. So this is a true story about Leonard Siraki's time in the Army as a machine gunner. It is also a tender love story and a harrowing battlefield memoir during World War II. But it's really balanced well. It's like 50-50. Joe and Leonard's grandson, Joseph Siraki, has carefully researched the battles that his grandfather had described to him, and he expanded on the letters into a moving tale of a young man's fear of bravery far from home, but also also his grandmother's story of having her husband be so far away and not knowing what tomorrow might bring. So he did such a really beautiful job. So Dan pointed out when the book came, he was like, this is going to be great because it opens with a Kurt Vonnegut quote. And if you're a fan of literature, like Dan and I are, especially Dan, loves Kurt Vonnegut a lot. So there's a quote from Slaughterhouse-Five, and I love this. And he said, we've had to imagine the war here, and we have imagined that it has been fought by aging men like ourselves. We had forgotten that wars were fought by babies. When I saw those freshly shaved faces, it was a shock. My God, I said to myself, it's the children's crusade. Heartbreaking. So instantly you start to cry, like I did. And then the prologue is written by Joseph Siraki, the grandson of Joe and Leonard. And he just talks about his grandfather and the way that his grandfather would describe the war to him. And it opens up with the love story of Leonard and Joe. And it's like the love story you always want. He sees her across the room, and he's instantly in love with her, and so beautiful. So the story is really brought to life by the paintbrush work by Kelly Williams, and he does a really beautiful job. The artwork is phenomenal. A lot of it is, you can tell, or I can tell because I can see it a little bit better. A lot of watercolor, a lot of pen, like ballpoint pen work. So it's really great. Also, what's really cool about this book is that the letter that started this whole thing appears in the end. So here's a part of the letter. So he hand wrote the letter, and then Joe went and typed it so she could read it over and over and over again. And that's kind of brings me to the next thing, is there's a lot of pictures. So here's Josephine. There's tons of pictures of Josephine. And there's Leonard right there. So this picture right here so there's a story behind this picture that's in the book. So her father is like, you have to stop reading the letters. You have to go out with your girlfriends. Go get a drink with your girlfriends. Get out of the house. And she's like, no, I would rather stay here because, well, she was lonely, and she just figured if she was here, if there was any bad news that would be brought to her, she would be able to get it firsthand and not, you know, she wanted to be at home to get the bad news. So this picture is drawn, and the story is in one of the chapters, and I think it's really cool that you can actually see the picture of her and her girlfriends out, and I thought that was really neat. And there's her on her wedding day, and it's just so beautiful. I mean, the artwork is to die for. So thank you for your service, Mr. Leonard Siraki, and thank you, Joseph, for bringing to life your grandparents' love story, the story of the battles that your grandfather fought. There is really no better way to honor your family than to do something like this. Martin Scorsese has a quote. He says, "The most personal is the most creative." And this could not be more true with this graphic novel memoir. It's a really great way to honor your family, and it's never too late to thank somebody who fought for our country, so thank you. And I really hope that you guys pick this up. So this is my first pick, A Letter to Joe. So next up is a book that I was kind of like on the bottom of my list to read, but I'm happy that I picked it up. Animosity, Year 1. So Year 1 collects a significant amount of the story, because there's 5 volumes, and this has to collect at least, this collects 21 of the stories. So I think there's like Year 1 and Year 2. So Animosity. One day the animals wake up, and they started to think, and they started to talk. They started to take revenge, and now a little girl, Jessie, she's 11 years old, and her dog, Sonder, are now devoted to go cross-country on a journey to find Jessie's half-brother, Adam, who is living in San Francisco. So the uprising of the animals starts in New York City, and then her and her dog, Sonder, who is like a bloodhound dog, he's really great. He really protects her. They go on this cross-country journey to find her half-brother, Adam. It's a little confusing because there's a time jump during which was going on in the story. So just like take your time, because it will be full circle. You'll figure it out, but it will take you a little bit. So it's by Marguerite Bennett. I finally got your name right. Marguerite Bennett is one of the authors on DC Bombshells. I wouldn't say this is her strongest work, but I could be totally biased because I love DC Bombshells, so I'm probably just a little biased. Like I said, there's 5 volumes. If you're an animal lover, if you don't like people all that much, which is, you know, that's cool, you'll definitely like this. There's so many different kinds of animals too, and the way that they like find revenge on people is kind of amazing and brilliant. The art is super cool. There's Sonder right there, and he really protects Jessie and loves Jessie. I mean, like that saying, man's best friend, it really comes to life in this book. So definitely pick this up. Like I said, we have Year 1. I think there's like a Year 2, and there's 5 volumes in all. This just happens to collect like a lot of them. But definitely worth picking up and reading. So my last pick, I know for a fact I did tell you guys about Fatale in one of Peanut's picks a while ago. Well, then I became obsessed. And then I got book 2. And then I got book 3. And then I realized, you know what? Instead of getting volume 4 and 5, I think I'm just going to get the omnibus and just collect all of them because I love this series. There's 5 volumes in all. I read volume 4 and 5 on Hoopla. So I finally concluded the whole series, and I was like, I just have to tell everybody because everybody has to read Fatale. It's so good. And if you guys haven't caught on, I'm a huge Brubaker fan. I love everything that the man writes. He's just a really good writer. He's definitely like top 5 writers for me. So Fatale is a really interesting it's a really interesting series. It features secrets, lies, horror, lust, mystery, noir, and monsters. They all collide in all 5 volumes. And you would think like, but it's done really well. Like I said, if you're somebody like Brubaker and you can pull something like that off featuring all those genres, you're a good writer. So, volume 1, Death Chases Me. We meet Josephine. 2 Josephines in this Peanuts Picks could not be more different. This Josephine is a little different. So we meet Josephine, an ageless femme fatale. So lucky. So lucky, Josephine. Who can take any man captive by just being. So in Volume 1, in present day, a man meets Josephine, who instantly becomes obsessed. And then it jumps to 1950, and Josephine destroys the lives of all those who cross her path on the quest to try to figure out why she is the way that she is. So then in Volume 2, if I can get to it. Okay, so Volume 2, isn't she's beautiful. I love her. I love Josephine. Fatale Volume 2, The Devil's Business. So then it jumps to 1970, Los Angeles. And it's really cool, the time periods, because she's ageless, you can go to all sorts of really fun time periods and write about like what was going on during the times. And so it's like part history lesson too. It's really cool. Okay, so 1970s Los Angeles, Josephine can't hide from the forces of Hollywood, satanic cults, and creepy 16mm films collected by wealthy deviants. So when a struggling actor and his wounded friend come across Josephine, all hell breaks loose, leaving ripples that echo throughout all the way to modern times. So then it jumps to modern time, where men fall deeper into Josephine's spell. So in Volume 2, she's kind of laying low. She knows the effects that she has on men, and she kind of fell in love with this man in the first volume, and he kind of stays throughout all 5 volumes, and that's why she kind of like is a little hesitant to like, well, and more in Volume 2, she's like more hesitant to like be around men because she knows what she can do to men. So so in Volume 2, she kind of lays low a little bit because she's figuring out who she is, how she can, really creep the hell out of men and destroy their lives. The covers are amazing. I really want this one. I like that one. I want them all, to be honest. Okay, so Volume 3 is very interesting. It's called West of Hell. The 3rd arc goes into the dark days of the Depression, to the Middle Ages, and then to the Old West. These tales of horror and a lot of mythology in Volume 3 of Josephine. This is more kind of like where Josephine figures out her origin stories, and you learn her origin stories, like how she became this way. So Volume 3 is kind of, it's crucial. I liked it. It was interesting. Volume 4, Pray for Rain, which I don't have, like I said, I read it on Hoopla, was probably my favorite. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll all collide in the strangest and most exciting volume, in my opinion. It opens with Josephine having no memory of her life or who she is or her powers that she has over men. She stumbles into the lives of a struggling grunge band in the mid-90s in Seattle. Soon the men are entranced by her and she becomes their muse. And then it kind of asks the questions like, will she save them for being a one-hit wonder? Or will she do something much worse? Especially because there's a man, or there's a killer, he's a man, there's a killer that's on her trying to get to Josephine, and she has like no idea why, because she doesn't have any memory of her life or who she is or why she has these powers. So volume 4 was kind of my favorite. And then the final Fatale, which is volume 5, The Curse of the Demon, the horror noir concludes in an epic conclusion. The secrets of the mortal femme fatale and her adversary come to light before their final explosive confrontation. So definitely this series is worth picking up. I loved it from volume 1. It's an older series of theirs, but they've gotten nominated 6 times for Eisner Awards for this series. There is an omnibus that collects the stories, and instead of getting 4 and 5, I think I'm just going to wait out and get that one because it's something that I want on my shelf and just to kind of go back and read, because it's a really, really compelling story. If you like Stephen King, if you like Joe Hill's writing, if you like H.P. Lovecraft, if you like mythology, if you like monsters, this is, if you like sexy women, pick this up. It's really, really cool. If you like noirs, pick it up. I mean, there's so many different things. Like, if you're into so many different things, it really captures a lot of stuff. So I would say Fatale's up there next to I Hate Fairyland and Ice Cream Man. They're my favorites so far. So I hope you guys are staying well and doing well. Linked below will be Dan's eBay store. He's working really hard, like I said, working, going to school, working on his eBay store. You're doing a fantastic job, Danny. I'm really proud of you. Linked below will be his eBay store. So I hope everybody is doing well, staying well. Until next time, we will see you. Bye, guys.